Commander Lightning log entry January 1st. 3310, Coriccha System, Imperial Cutter IC-HNA. So this is probably my first log entry and I have exactly no idea where to start and what to write. Well, anyways, some people told me writing down my thoughts and doings while alone in the black helps with space madness. Not that I'd believe that, as the writing of a text alone makes me mad. At least it's worth a try, I guess. Got a lot of free time anyways. Not exactly much going on out here. Not that it was any better back in the bubble. Perhaps a good place to start this log at though. Gotta start somewhere. The last noteworthy incident was probably when 2 of our ground units messed up at a Spire Site and needed evacuation, but that's already a while back. Spent most of my time mining since but got kinda tired of it, so ended up just flying around hoping for stuff to happen. As expected, nothing happened. I'm quite good at not being where the action is, apparently. Luckily, just before space madness got me, I've received word from our Colonia outpost about increasing Begula activity in the area, and that they've got a good demand for the Begula's precious escape pods. Hunting some Begulas, just what I needed. Combining that with a Tritium delivery to the local tankers sounded like the perfect task. Well, it didn't just sound like it, it was. But no task without the right ship. I think everybody knows by now how much I like cutters, and I didn't have a dedicated Begula hunter at that time, so you can guess. Yep, you got it right. Simply couldn't resist expanding my cutter fleet once again. While Moridin was so nice to load up the Black Star, I was running all over the place trying to gather all the material thingies for the final tweaks for the cutter. Admittedly, I was rushing the ship a bit too much and didn't have time for proper testing before departing towards Colonia. Kind of foolish of me, huh? Speaking about rushing stuff and doing things properly while I'm at it. There was this weird random dude who sent a message with a call for help. Something. Right after my planned departure time. Got lucky one of my passengers arrived a bit too late, so I was still in the bubble. Had some weird messages and wanted us to deliver some presents. Not my biggest interest, but he promised some good pay. Had to kill some time anyways, so why not? Said his letters were corrupted, turned out they were only encrypted with some easy stuff. Upon arrival, some members of the local carrier club were already done with decrypting the letters so I could get right to hauling. Okay, hauling might be a bit exaggerated. Only a few small presents sort of things, to a few recipients, no big deal. Turned out none liked their presents, but that's not my problem as long as I'm getting paid for it. Anyways, the trip to Colonia went without any special events, so I managed to arrive nicely on schedule. Yeah, well, schedule is questionable. I'd just like to figure out the earliest time when I could get somewhere and call that my schedule, so not really a schedule, but whatever. Did I mention the destination was a neutron star? I mean, I was aware, and I've ever so often used the neutron highway, but oh well did the carrier crew park her close to the star, bit too close for comfort for me, Should've seen me on my first approach back to the carrier, can't remember ever having flown a cutter so carefully. Seems like I made it, else I wouldn't be writing this right now I guess. Got some stuff sorted on the next day there, visited some NSP thingy in the system and transferred Stinger, the APW cutter over to DornHub at the hunting ground. Didn't like the price of the transfer, but you know, always think the credits per hour way, and it's fine, or well, it has to. Might also say jumping Black Star around would be too big of a logistical mess, as well as she was still near fully loaded at that time. By the way, is AI always so slow about ship transfers? That waiting time almost drive me into madness, 8 damn hours for 1,500 light years. They fly in along with a sighty and fuel transfer limpets to move the ships around. I'm not gonna question that further, but that may explain the speed and price. So it felt like years later they finally got her moved and I could get to some live Begula hunting and put Stinger into some action and see if my theory about the loadout was right. It kinda was. Worked quite as intended against Begulas. Orcas though, different story. Slippery fish and my inability to aim big fixed guns didn't go along well. So what? All my equipment being 1.5k lie away wasn't quite convenient for a quick refit. Didn't have any useful stuff lying around there anyways as it turned out. Minor inconvenience I call that. So what would I do as a foolish fool? Exactly. I like to gather a few too many materials whenever I'm modifying stuff, so happen to have enough for, a single cannon. boarded my Phantom I had with me at DornHub and flew back to ZE Blackstar, switching over to Spirit of Hope, my exploration cutter. Needed a ship with reasonable range capable of mounting the weapon I was about to search now. One of the reasons I like Colonia is the small size and proximity, hence didn't take a long time to find a vendor, and the nearest engineer workshop was right around the corner as well. Annoyed as I was, I carried the new equipment out to DornHub again to fit it onto Stinger, and after a bit more fishing the results were satisfying enough for me to call it a day and return to the carrier, enjoying the view of the Earth like it was orbiting as well as the sky full of stars with the Colonia Nebula in the background. I'd have liked to enjoy the view a little longer, but it was getting late, relatively speaking, and the Tritium transfer was scheduled for tomorrow, so I had to use all the time I could get some rest. I take we all know just too well what's gonna happen if I fly a shieldless cutter while half asleep, huh? Here we go, new day, new luck. Once again I've hauled my lazy self from DornHub over to the Blackstar in Colonia to prepare for the transfer. Not that I was exceptionally keen on hauling 12k tons of tritium alone while passing danger close to a neutron with every single load, but someone had to do it. And it's not like I offered to deliver this load by myself. Oh well. The flying itself turned out to be fairly easy, but the sounds of the star were unsettling until the very last load. In-cause coincidences are always nice. The latest tanker reports from GA showed some tritium movements as well, so they also needed some of my already limb-tied attention. What could go wrong while hauling next to a neutron and coordinating tanker movements simultaneously? Everything. I mean, a fool is supposed to mess things up by nature, so if things go wrong in the sense of a fool, then it's just right for a normal someone. Whatever, I'm thinking too much. In any case, after a few hours I've managed to restock the tanker EV's Aegis to the extent of my capacity, and the tankers at GA received their orders as well, so I could finally pay my full attention to the task I came here for, Begula hunting. And once again I gotta fly all the way out to DornHub. Arg, this is slowly getting annoying, but hey, this should be the last time I'm flying there for a bit, right? Go and lower their strength to reasonable levels and forget them for a while. At least that's the plan. The first run made for a good amount of cracked whales and collected escape pods. However, halfway in the scanners started to pick up some rather unexpected signatures. Clearly not Begulas, but, pirates. What in the name of Raxla are pirates doing out here at a tourist beacon in literal nowhere? Skin detected, well I get it. They want my precious escape pods, but what would they want to do with them? Unfortunately, the majority ended up as space dust before I could find out, so that shall remain a mystery. Still remember when that one novice sighty was threatening me for a single pod. Dude, you're in the weakest ship and got no clue what you're doing. You ain't perhaps overestimating your strength? I'm afraid he didn't learn his lesson though. Poor guy turned to space dust before he noticed he messed up. But that shall not be my problem. At least he made for yet another nice firework. All the pirate activity at the beacon kinda got me to abandon the run. Still got a few hunt pods collected despite that though. Nothing too bad given the inconvenient circumstances. The next run, however, was entirely without disruptions, so that made for a nice hold full of pods and a shiny amount of credits on top. So I just got into the mood for more Begula hunting, and of course it was only a matter of time until I got disturbed again. Another update from GA it seems. Good news, the requested restock got completed. Turned out though the tanker had some mined goods stored that needed transfer to the bubble. I'm not questioning why it had minerals aboard, but they're there anyways. On top, the tech department also wanted me to run around the stations to get fresh updates. Fun work, but it's my job, so couldn't really say no. What did all that mean? Right, returning to Blackstar once again and getting her ready for departure to GA. Minor logistical mess as I planned for a direct return to the bubble, but as usual things never come as expected. To allow for a quicker response to any increasing Begula activity in the future, I decided to leave Stinger Station on DornHub, enjoying the notorious 5K lie once more. Admittedly, all that flying around wasn't that bad. On almost every trip I found water worlds, many terraformable, and even as binaries, 2 ammonia worlds. One of them ringed, and let's not forget my first ever electric eye, something I wanted to see with my own eyes for a very long time. Side note here, am I getting a bit too rough on this stuff? Feeling like I'm starting to leave out too much detail. Didn't expect it to be this much to write, but I started it, and now I want to finish it at least as in catching up with now. And so while Blackstar was slowly making her way to GA, I jumped into my Phantom, the Ghost of Azura, and rushed ahead along the Neutron Highway so I could use the travel time to do a run around the tankers to get their latest numbers. To my surprise, in the short time since the last update, another tanker got almost completely depleted in stock. The good thing about it though was that we could finally organize the unloading of Majestic, the last remaining tanker from the Destiny Ascension hub. So I returned to Blackstar, which caught up quite a bit by now, and got in touch with Runaway and Majestic to set up the transfer, as well as Odaman to obtain clearance for my own arrival. Hearing Hal's voice on the comms always makes me feel right back at home. Waiting on the tankers to relocate, I made the requested loop around our stations to give the tech team some food to work with, and unsurprisingly stumbled across a buy order for escape pods on Demilink Memorial. Knowing what I'd do after the hauling was complete, I tried my luck on some tritium mining for the time being. Of course not for profit. Well, kinda. Being short of tritium for the return due to the unexpected trip per GA, and having to kill some time anyway, it made for a nice difference to the flying around and hauling of the recent days. And honestly, trying my rusty skills on SSD mining was quite fun. Let's just not talk about mining speed, yee? After that run and a bit of data exchange with the tech team, the tankers finally got into position so I could continue right away with hauling. Slightly inconvenient, the transfer was happening at the B-hole, which was a bit of a cruise from the entry point, but once I got there, Broken Arrow did a good job at hauling as always. Was quite close though, so I had to squeeze some of the tonnage from Majestic onto Blackstar to get her unloaded completely, which was kind of the main goal after all. As I needed a bit more tritium anyways, that came in quite conveniently. Now this is the point when I noticed I once again didn't think things through properly. Thought I'd go do Begula hunting, but left the Begula hunter in Colonia. Very clever of me. Actually, it wasn't any problem at all, as I still had my laser mining cutter Hannah docked aboard Blackstar, and despite her being officially only a mining vessel, she already doubled as a Begula hunter many times before Stinger joined my fleet. I've done some changes to her self-defense armament after the last ABW run, prioritizing sustainability over burst damage, so I wasn't too sure if it was still enough to catch some fish before it slips away, but as I could quickly figure out in a short test run, the output seemed to be more than enough to catch even the slippery orcas. At least as long as I lined up my attack runs properly, that is. Now why is it that there's always a loading job to be done whenever I want to go hunt Begulas? Just been about to prepare the first proper run, and guess, a client came in and ordered a load of trit. Couldn't say no, as usual. Not gonna talk much about it, as it's been just even more hauling, which I've absolutely not done enough of the days before. By now it was 4 days until 3310, having promised my passengers to return to the bubble for New Year. That left me with 2 days at AI, given I'd probably need the other 2 days for the return, with all sorts of preparation and stuff, you know. Took a calm approach on those days. After all, there were no orders to be completed, yet. And for once it could stay like that. Almost forgot how nice it was to just relax, take my time for things and all the chaos of the last days. So I've decided to only do a single sortie for Begula hunting on each of those days, and maybe also explore a little bit along the way when heading out to sell the pods at Demilink. So far the first sortie was going quite well until I've picked up some unusual comms traffic nearby. Wonder what that was. Like back in Colonia, the answer nicely announced herself with a beautiful scan detected. Ugh. Did the Begulas hire those pirates as bodyguards in disguise? At least hunting them while having to constantly avoid pirates wasn't the fun I was hoping for, most notably as I didn't have any point defense against hatch breakers on here, so all I could do was run from them to exceed their operational range from the launch ship. Boom and zoom for the win. However, that was the easy pass. Keeping the enemy within effective engagement range while avoiding damage was another story. In the end, I only had beams with fairly low effective range, while most of my opposition could easily outrange that. Didn't like that for sure. What other options did I have except tanking the damage though? Especially the heavier opposition gave quite a beating to my shield, so I eventually had to resort to the cells and abort completely short after. Hey, think positive, it could have been worse. Perhaps I should remind myself that Hannah was never intended to face any combat outside of the occasional self-defense against pirates trying to steal my cargo. So basically this exact scenario if you think about it. Well, at the same time I could have run from every pirate I faced out here while they attempted their scan, unlike those that have a supernatural perception for valuable stuff and start blasting right away. Guess I thought I'd clean them up and could continue hunting after, even though my experience told me they wouldn't stop coming. Maybe next time I should try to enter Super Cruise and drop again right away and pray they don't spot the wake? Sometimes that seemed to work, other times it didn't. Before attracting any more pirates, I've set course for Demulink and slowly made my way there, as fast as I could, as I had to fly somewhat economical as the carrier was technically outside my range, especially with cargo in the hold. Why can't the NAV computer simply have a fuel-efficient fast routing option? Manually replotting every jump to be a bit shorter is annoying. Still faster than eco-routing or running out of fuel though. And it wasn't that far after all, so I should stop complaining here. Took the return to GA a bit slower, scanned some systems along the way, but without any interesting finds except an icy body with a nitrogen atmosphere. So far I haven't been disappointed by them, so I went ahead and touched down on that planet, enjoying the view for a bit. Man, was it beautiful looking after so much steel and emptiness. Before I left again, I quickly gathered a sample of the present bacteria revealed by my DSS, and then headed directly back to Blackstar to prepare for the Begula run I planned for the next day. I've aimed to head out as early as possible so I had more time later to deal with any arising issues regarding the carrier departure towards the bubble, assuming there were any. Thankfully my crew managed to deal with everything alone, as my sortie took far longer than expected. And no, not cause of pirates this time. Even the Begulas kept coming nicely and ship systems were fine as well. Gotta admit it was my own doing this time, as my thoughts were somewhere else and clearly not in the cockpit on the controls for half the time. There's that one story. Arg. Give me a minute in a quiet place, just like waiting at the beacon for the next fish to drop in, and it's there again, ready to drive me into space madness. Never shared it with anyone, never felt the need, although I probably should. So I'll simply leave it here and share it with this log, or whatever one may call this, and leave it to coincidence for anyone to find and read it. Kinda long story, gonna cut it to the important part here, not like I'm writing too much anyways already. So yeah. Way back in the day, before I've even joined the Pilots Fed, I was working for a small mining company in the outer systems to get some money so I could afford my very own ship and officially join the Pilots Federation and make my own way, leaving that place behind. What could I say? Dirt work, shit pay, and bad people, the latter most notably giving me a overall bad image of other people. Wasn't right obviously, but that was my thinking back then, until, well... Damn it, why am I struggling so badly to say this? Arg! Focus! Come on, it's just a damn text file. There was that day when I eventually came across that girl. She seemed different than the others, can't tell how, but as hard as it is for me to say, I liked her right away, but shy as I was and am, you know. To skip ahead a bit, we were eventually assigned to the same wing for a mining sortie, and it was great. Oh, and no, it never exceeded work-related topics. Despite that, on this one sortie, she quickly taught me an important lesson which I'll hopefully never forget. There are also nice people out there, not just idiots. To end this story, on the return to base our wing got under pirate attack. Even now I clearly remember watching our ships being pulled out of cruise, some haven't been seen again to this day, years later. You can guess. And that's about how the cutter I'm flying right now got her name, for me, a way to always have a positive memory alongside me. Getting back to present, I still managed to get my cargo hold filled up completely and delivered to Demulink Memorial, even though I was like half absent for the duration of the run. Returning to Blackstar, that's about everything of note that happened until now. A quick loop around our tankers on the 30th right before carrier departure for up-to-date data on their stock, and so I was already on my way back to the bubble, relaxing in my cutter's quarters and writing this very log while Nora on Blackstar's bridge was making sure the carrier got to her destination back in Coriccha. We managed to arrive a couple hours before New Year, just like scheduled, so I had some time left to kill. Perfect for selling the minerals and loading her up with tritium once again, right? A fellow space fool eventually joined me on the loading, so we got it done in no time at all while also having some fun as well. Most importantly though, what's a new year without fireworks? With the help of my ground crew, I've mounted some firework launchers, more like flak launchers with special ammo, onto Spirit of Hope and ran a system check to make sure all launchers were assigned to their correct triggers. Closely monitoring the clock, I've placed myself a bit away from the carrier to avoid interruptions to any traffic, wondering if anyone would come to join me. Sadly, the only ones here to watch the fancy explosions was the carrier crew, but I don't want to blame anyone as weird stuff was going on in the bubble recently, so I could understand if people preferred to avoid open space. As I fired off all my ammunition and had nothing else to do, I returned to the carrier to get some rest and start into 3,310 full of new energy. This concludes all relevant actions of the last days as well as this entry and should pave the way for more detailed daily logs in the future. Lightning, out.